Welcome to the Question Community Broadcast. The Question is a new disruptive community that provides a gathering place for those who wonder about our complex selves, our complex world, our complex universe. We are a non-religious and inclusive community that explores the many questions surrounding truth in order to encourage you on the important journey to find your own answers. The Question Community gathers every third Sunday evening at Red Bush Tea and Coffee Company in the Kensington neighborhood of Calgary, starting at 7. Information on the community is available at our website, www.thequestion.ca. You can also join the community online at our Facebook page, which is The Question, and on Twitter at TQCom with 2 M's. You're now going to hear some highlights from our community gathering, where the question is asked through original arts and music, as well as thought-provoking presentations. This is Frederick Tamaki.
Let's give it up for Jonathan one more time. With songwriters, it's always a contest to see who can write about emptiness the best. So.
Nobody wins.
Okay, so I've discovered something obvious, if it's possible to discover the obvious. We love our personal technology. I mean, we really love it. We love it in all its forms: desktop, handheld, mountable, wearable, drivable, virtual, and imaginable. Now, you'll notice that I deliberately used the adjective personal to distinguish it from technology in general, because general technology, frankly, is kind of difficult to love. Just like a great cheeseburger is much easier to love than the greedy industrial food complex that made it possible. If general technology means the underlying technological foundations, the complex supporting infrastructure, the precisely engineered functionality, and the unbelievably intertwining operations that make our personal technology work, then it's not surprising when we talk about general technology, the word love doesn't immediately spring to mind. Like they say, we generally don't want to know how the sausage or the burger is made, right? Now, we only love that our personal tech works, not how it works, or even more importantly, not why it works. And as we've shared in the community before, why is always the question that takes us further down the path. So we can admit that we really don't love everything about technology, but sit us down in front of the cheeseburger. The latest iPhone, the newest 4K ultra-high definition TV, Oculus Rift virtual reality, Google Glass, or an autonomous vehicle, and we fall in love. It may even be a condition worse than love. I may run the risk of offending lovers of love, because our relationship with our personal tech frequently resembles something closer to cult-like or even dangerously addictive behavior. Now, I recently watched a whole series of YouTubes. People staring at their phones while they walked into open manholes, or fell down a flight of stairs, or even walked into the path of an oncoming vehicle. These are like screenshots of that, but I watch people get hit by cars, sometimes with fatal results. Now, they're abrupt and not so romantic conclusions to this new love affair, to be sure. Now, is it a surprise to anyone that we've been forced to pass distracted driving laws to quench the fever of this love affair? It's not a surprise to me, because I have to admit, I partially suffer from this love sickness myself. Now, I realize that no one in this community, in this room, is tech obsessed enough to walk into an open manhole. At least I don't think so, right? But let me ask you this. How many of you regularly walk around holding your phone in your hand? Don't have to put up your hand. When you're anywhere waiting for someone or something or otherwise unoccupied, how many of you automatically default to looking at your phone? When you're with other people in a waiting room, a restaurant, even on the street, what percentage of the people you're with are on their phones in some capacity? Now, here's a love question, if there ever was one. How many of you spend time in bed with your phones before you go to sleep, and then sleep with your phones nearby? Actually, I do that, and that's not a picture of me, but it could be, okay? Now, it's not strange or creepy, I don't think. It's just our new and intimate reality with personal tech. how did it become so intimate? More importantly, why did it become so intimate? So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this new reality and prompt you to consider the possibilities of why it's become so intimate and so personal. Oddly enough, this very personal discussion will have to begin in the most impersonal place that you could think of. The cold, hard, impersonal world of data. Okay, so now I will plead guilty to the past crime of boring you with statistics. But fair warning, out of necessity, my life of crime will not come to an end tonight. The reason that I could not reform and go straight is that my research into the world of data led me into the next world of big data. Now, discovering this next world spawned a visceral emotional reaction in me. Not love, mind you, precisely because of the statistics. Big data is mass marketed as a completely useful, neutral as mathematics, obedient as the family dog, powerful as our fingertips, cool tool of the sophisticated modern person, right? But my research prompted a question about whether big data or we were the real tool. Now, before I share these boring statistics, it might help you to know exactly what big data really is. Big data is the term used for the combined global database resulting from every digital interaction of every available data type, okay, text, images, video, audio, from every available data device. That's big data. PC, mobile, TV, other media devices. It's the combined database. Now this combined global database is too massive, it's too fluid, too changeable, too complex, too exponential, and too new to be managed or understood by a traditional small data methodology. Its sheer size is so unbelievable that it almost feels theoretical. Yet big data is a real thing. It is a real thing. And it's getting bigger all the time. Okay, so you gotta ready yourself to be bored and then maybe a little disturbed. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna share some big data's new metrics with you. This is big data's scale. Okay, starts out with the word exabyte. Okay, 1 exabyte, which is kind of the language of big data, is equal to 1 billion gigabytes. Now, this is not on the slide, but the next level up is 1 zettabyte, which is now becoming a part of the language, part of the lexicon of big data. 1 zettabyte is 1,000 exabytes. That's 1 trillion gigabytes. Every single day, the world generates about 2.5 quintillion bytes. That's 18 zeros, okay? Or 2.5 million exabytes of data, 2.5 billion gigabytes. 2.5 exabytes is the equivalent of 2.5 million 1 terabyte hard drives per day. Okay, that's just like the one you have in your home. If this data was placed on a 1 gigabyte flash drive, every single person on Earth would receive 3 flash drives per day. Every single person. Every 2 days, we generate as much data as we did from the dawn of civilization to the year 2003. 90% of all data ever produced was generated in the last 2 years. I didn't know this, so when I found it out, it's so massive it seemed theoretical to me. But it wasn't even real, okay? This is big data's growth rate. The global data generation rate is increasing at a rate of 10 times every 5 years. Okay, so in 2013, 4.4 trillion gigabytes of data was generated. By 2020, not that long from now, it's estimated that the total data generation yearly will reach 44 trillion gigabytes. That's the equivalent of 40 years of our current rate reached in just 5 years. Okay, the next line is pretty interesting. It gives you an idea of how quickly we've started to generate data. In 1992, kind of, pre-digital era, the world was generating only about 100 gigabytes a day of data. In 1997, it went to 100 gigabytes per hour. 2002, it went to 100 gigabytes per second. Okay, so now we're starting to roll a bit. 2013, not that long ago, it moved to over 28,000 gigabytes per second. And just a couple of years from now, it's estimated that we're going to be at 50,000 gigabytes a second. of data being generated in the world, from 100 gigabytes a day. Now we're generating far more data than we can store ourselves, okay? Currently we're generating about 1,000 exabytes a year of data. The estimated local storage capacity, and when I say local storage, I mean your hard drives, DVDs, CDs, SDs, flash drives, other media, including books, okay? The total world local storage capability is about 400 exabytes. And we're generating 1,000 exabytes a year. Okay, so there's a huge gap, and the gap is widening. It's widening exponentially. This is the part that will sort of kick off what I'm talking about. This is big data's future. In 2007, 92% of all global data was stored on our local devices, hard drives, DVDs, CDs, etc. Okay, that's in 2007. This year, 70% of all global data is still stored on local devices. Okay, so the stuff that we generate, this is not the stuff we generate, it's the stuff we want to keep. By 2020, only 30% of all global data will be stored on local devices. And by 2025, less than 10 years from now, less than 5% of all global data will be stored on local devices that we can see and touch and feel. Okay? So there are some obvious questions. Where is all our data going to? And where is it being stored? And maybe more importantly, why is it being stored? So, big data is indeed big. It's growing bigger and bigger every day, and we collectively are the reason. Our love affair and our practical dependence on tech are the driving forces that feed big data, and it's those forces that have caused the now impossible gap between the amount of data that we now generate and the amount of data that we can effectively store and manage. Now, I know that most of us who consider ourselves tech savvy, and there's a few people in this room that feel they are comforted by our extra micro SD cards and flash drives and laptop hard drives and big external hard drives if we can afford them. But many, many people around the world are gradually shifting to a more convenient and less expensive alternative. Many of you have already noticed a shift in your own behavior. And just like a conventional love affair shifts from flirtation to dating to relationship to commitment, so goes our love affair with data. Instead of worrying about the limitations of our hard drive, our email attachment size, or our smartphone memory, we've been given access to a seemingly unlimited reservoir of personal data storage. It feels, in a word, liberating. Okay? This remarkable, liberating new reservoir is an entirely new digital industry that's been created to accommodate, analyze, and exploit the unknown scale and potential of big data. Okay? This new industry has a name. It's called the cloud.
This is Jonathan Ferguson.
This exact idea for years before I did. I wanted to write a song from the point of view of a murderer and make everyone feel sorry for them. So I feel like I did it. What's that? Yeah, I did it first though. I'm pretty sure. But I actually, the first line is actually something that happened to me, like the first part of the first line, and I just thought it would make a cool opener, so I thank my slippery bathtub for helping me write this.
I put my foot through the bathtub, looking for water. Well, it was only 2 days ago I used it to clean up the slaughter. And in the porcelain tiles and the mirror I smile, hiding everything that I know. And all that I'm hiding, I'm looking to flood. Where did the water go? I should have given in to doubt, but now every minute I'm stuck in this moment. Do I really deserve to get out? No. I put my fists through my reflection. I say, see you in hell. Because I'm far from his advocate. I'm the old man himself. And as I run my face on my shredded smile, I realize what I'll never know. Where did the water go? Where did it go?
So what exactly is the cloud? It's kind of a wonderful term. It's a nice term, isn't it? It evokes feelings of expansiveness, gentleness, beauty, freedom, even spirituality. No one really knows where the term cloud actually originated. Okay? Some say it's a tribute to the old-style computer flowchart where individual functions are depicted inside a cloud-shaped bubble. Others say that it's a reference to how comic books and other graphic illustrations depict a character's thoughts suspended in a bubble or a cloud above their heads. I saw a few of these. I really like this one. Robin, what have I done to you? Yeah. Now, this is the way that we usually see a graphic representation of the cloud. It's kind of friendly, puffy companion in the sky to which we can smoothly connect with our personal devices and enthusiastically live out our digital lives. We spend any time emailing, texting, calling, searching, connecting on social media, watching videos, shopping, or exchanging files, we are most likely interacting with the cloud. Now, the cloud is not the internet, just as a city is not a road, okay? The cloud is quickly and inevitably becoming the metropolis or the megacity of the internet. Now, for closet tech geeks among us, and there's not so closeted tech geeks here, okay? The cloud is an internet-based digital repository based on massive shared resources for data storage, computing, and processing. This digital repository increasingly resides in giant data centers or server farms located all over the world, ranging from 400,000 square feet to over 1 million square feet. That's 20 football fields, okay, to give you kind of a sense of scale. Each of these giant data centers contains 50 to 80,000 individual server units, all networked with other data centers operated by owners of the cloud. They are often built in remote locations for reasons of land costs, proximity to major power sources like hydro dams and power plants, closeness to fresh water resources for temperature control. And some are even located in order to experiment with new renewable power or cooling technologies. This is a slide of 2 data centers, okay? The one on the left is Facebook's Arctic Circle data center, okay? They built this in northern Sweden. It's about 500,000 square feet in size. They did it to take advantage of the temperature, the ambient temperature, year-round around the Arctic Circle. Parts of this data center are literally encased in ice, okay, to maintain the temperature. The picture on the right is a prototype of Microsoft's undersea data center prototype. Again, to take advantage of the cooling technology of being underwater, as well as experimenting with tidal power for generating electricity. This is taken, they won't say where it is, it's taken somewhere off the coast of California. This is just a prototype. Another interesting example of the cloud is the NSA data center in Utah, okay, which covers an area of 1.5 million square feet. That's 30 football fields. And it's estimated conservatively to have data storage capacity on the order of 10 exabytes, okay, that's 10 billion gigabytes. Now, to give you an example of what that means, 10 billion gigabytes is enough storage to record every single phone conversation, mobile or landline, in the United States, 24/7 for one full year. Now, some other reported estimates for NSA data capacity are up to 10 times larger than what I just said to you. Okay, so are you a little intrigued and even a little bit disturbed yet? So for the purposes of the question, an alternative and non-technical way to describe the cloud today would be to identify it as an emerging, exponentially expanding digital oligarchy that has the unique power to both create the demand and satisfy the demand in our ever-intensifying data-dominated lives. And who exactly are the members of this new digital oligarchy, this new destination to which all the roads of the digital world are steadily converging? Okay, you're probably already thinking this, right? Because it's not a big surprise. These oligarchs won't surprise you because just like the NSA, they aren't a secret, okay? But just like the NSA, they are very private and completely opaque. These are the top 4 cloud operators. I was really surprised. The number 1 cloud operator is Amazon. They're 29% of the cloud. They have 30 data centers and 3 million servers. Microsoft is second at 12% of the cloud. They've got 20 data centers and 1 million servers. IBM, kind of a sleeper. They're 7% of the cloud. They have 23 data centers around the world, and the number of servers they have is unknown. They won't tell anybody. Okay? Google is 4th. Bit of a surprise to me. 6% of the cloud, 15 data centers, and 1 million servers. Now, these 4 companies currently control 54% of the worldwide cloud and are quickly outgrowing all the other smaller players that represent the remaining 46%. So most experts predict that 5 to 10, but no more than 10, mega tech companies will eventually represent the entire global cloud. Now, if you're wondering where Apple and Facebook, because naturally you think Apple and Facebook, if you're wondering where they currently reside in the cloud crowd, you may be surprised. Until quite recently, Apple's iCloud has actually been a lowly tenant, renting cloud storage capacity from Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Okay? But in the last 3 years, Apple has recognized, finally, the historic implications of the cloud, and they're now spending billions to catch up to become a full member of the cloud ruling class. They've recently committed to building 3 giant data centers, totaling 2.5 million square feet, okay, at a cost of $4 billion. This is being done to enable them to discontinue supporting Amazon, Microsoft, and Google and their infrastructure. Apple is now committed to becoming one of the cloud's oligarchs, and they will be. They will be. Now, Facebook, I was surprised at this too. Facebook is actually not involved at all in the cloud. And they're focused mainly on building giant data centers for their own exclusive use, right? Building them next to the Arctic Circle. Because they have 1.7 billion monthly users. Now, just to compare, Google only has a paltry 1 billion users a month. So they're quite a bit smaller than Facebook. Now, Facebook is also preoccupied. They're currently preoccupied with a minor project called internet.org. And it's a project to provide internet access to every single person on Earth. Now, not coincidentally, this humanitarian plan that Facebook is on will grow their user base exponentially, because every initiative that they're starting around the world to provide internet access includes an automatic Facebook access. That's how you get onto the internet, is through Facebook. So Facebook, even though they're taking an unconventional strategy, they will be a future member of the cloud oligarchy. They just will. So within the next 10 years or less, virtually all of the world's data, our personal data, as well as all business and government data, will be stored on the cloud. Right now, as I'm speaking, this is another number that blew my mind. Right now, today, close to 90% of all mobile data is already being stored on the cloud. Our love affair with our phones has already gone way past the first date. Now, the intense irony of the cloud is that the companies that dominate it are basically our favorite personal tech buddies, okay? Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, Google, Apple, Facebook have been wildly successful at attracting our interest, captivating our attention, and finally tethering us to their digital ecosystems. They are the dominant icons of convenient online retail, the best operating systems and features, enterprise expertise to get businesses and governments to adopt the cloud, easy access to the world's knowledge base, an unprecedented electronic device addiction, an amazing virtual community with the entire world. It's as if these seemingly unrelated friends of ours, fierce competitors and rivals in the outside world of tech, are really like unique and separate doorways into the same big house, the unseen inner world of tech. And the hungrier and more demanding that we become for their friendship and their wares, the bigger they make their house to accommodate our visits and make us feel safe and at home. Now, it's equally ironic that just like any kind of intense hunger, compulsion, or addiction, our gigantic devotion to data keeps us happily oblivious to the fact that our personal digital lives are increasingly being lived inside their house, under their gaze. And ultimately, 100% of our relationships, our finances, our possessions, our history, our images and videos, our art, our citizenship, our most private communications will provide the ongoing building blocks for their big house, the cloud. Now let me ask you this. As you understand more of what the cloud is and who owns it, does it still seem like a big, beautiful house? Or more maybe like a big, beautiful prison? Or even a big, beautiful laboratory?
This is part 1 of this presentation. Part 2 will be continued in the next podcast episode. Thank you for listening. If you're interested in joining the question community, we meet every third Sunday evening at Redbush Tea and Coffee Company in the Kensington neighborhood of Calgary starting at 7. You can participate in the online discussion on our Facebook page, which is The Question, or on Twitter at TQCom. That's at TQCOMM. Our website is www.thequestion.ca. Thanks again for listening, and remember that our answers are only possible because of our questions. Welcome to the Question Community Broadcast. The Question is a new disruptive community that provides a gathering place for those who wonder about our complex selves, our complex world, our complex universe. We are a non-religious and inclusive community that explores the many questions surrounding truth in order to encourage you on the important journey to find your own answers. The Question Community gathers every third Sunday evening at Redbush Tea and Coffee Company in the Kensington neighborhood of Calgary, starting at 7. Information on the community is available at our website, www.thequestion.ca. You can also join the community online at our Facebook page, which is The Question, and on Twitter at TQCOM with 2 M's. You're now going to hear some highlights from our community gathering, where the question is asked through original arts and music, as well as thought-provoking presentations. This is Frederick Tamaki.
Now, remember I just said that ultimately, And very soon, 100% of our digital lives will be stored and monitored inside the cloud. I'd be really surprised if even the most committed technology fans weren't now just a little disturbed by that. Now, I'm now going to briefly share some other tech developments that are going to transform our lives, digital and otherwise, because of the cloud. So the disturbance, if you're feeling disturbed, has just begun. I'll start with biometric identification. Anyone that has an iPhone is probably using or very tempted to use the fingerprint ID feature on the phone. I have a fingerprint ID feature on my laptop, which I do not use. Fingerprint ID technology is perhaps the most familiar biometric utility that we encounter. Now, Apple has promised that your fingerprint information is encrypted and is never going to be uploaded to their cloud. Okay, but going back to my original cloud fable, aren't you already inside their house when you activate the phone? And even the most benevolent and courteous landlords still have the only master key to the whole house, don't they? Okay, so look, I'm not trying to create paranoia. Maybe I already have. Or God forbid, call a giant corporation dishonest. But being true to the community, I am going to prompt this question, okay? Now, you may also know, maybe you don't, that biometric identification is currently being applied across a much wider list of body parts and activities. Facial recognition. Okay, Facebook has a facial recognition algorithm. And there's lots of facial recognition in law enforcement. Retinal and iris scans. DNA verification. Notice how they're marketing DNA verification now? Ancestry.com, right? 23andMe, right? Where do you think all that DNA information is going? Okay. Voice recognition. Walking characteristics and gait analysis. And this last one, it just floored me. I didn't even realize. Keyboard typing rhythm. Had no idea that that is a signature. Mouse too, mouse clicks too. That's probably part of this, Stu. Now, all these biometric measures, including fingerprint ID, are currently in use and are being actively cataloged in databases everywhere, okay? From the FBI to Facebook. Now, there is a developing tech science called multimodal biometrics. Okay, now what this does is it seeks to correlate individual biometric characteristics like fingerprint, iris scans, and voice recognition into a much more complete virtual profile of a subject. This virtual profiling using our biometric data will become more possible as this information is steadily gathered, uploaded, and stored in the cloud. Okay? The utilization of this data will be as diverse users like the FBI and Facebook choose to apply it. But it's the cloud that makes it possible. One more thing. In 2009, India launched the world's first national biometric registration system. The program involved the gradual collection and cataloging of fingerprint ID, iris scans, and photographs for each and every Indian citizen. I was surprised to learn that as of this year, over 1 billion biometric ID files have been collected and stored. Okay? The Indian government is targeting next year to complete the biometric cataloging of the country's entire 1.3 billion population. So at the end of next year, the entire country of India will be cataloged this way. Now, this gigantic ID catalog is currently being stored in a separate government-controlled data center in Bangalore, India, separate from the cloud. However, most tech experts have predicted that most world governments, following the lead of most major corporations, will gradually have to turn to the cloud as tech changes and advances and as their budgets become more restrained. So the experts are basically predicting that these biometric records will eventually reside in the cloud. No longer separate, no longer safe. Next thing I want to talk about is the practice of microchip implantation under the skin. Now, this is an older but still developing technology that utilizes the same radio frequency or near field communication, right, NFC communication process that we use when we swipe our phone at a retail outlet or when we use an electronic fob to get into a building. It's been tested as a medium for everything from transmitting a personal ID number to access a cloud-based medical record system, to transferring embedded digital contact cards to NFC-equipped cell phones. So if I had one of these, Jonathan, and I wanted to send you a contact card, just have to activate my microchip and you get the contact card on your phone. Now, microchip implants are being medically studied right now because of some evidence that the silicate glass structure that encases it, or the rare earth metals contained inside the chip, may be connected to some negative health effects like cancer. Okay. So the technology is not being widely used at this time, but they'll solve this somehow. A point of interest on microchip implants is that in the early 2000s, like late 1990s and early 2000s, 15, 20 years ago, microchip implants were made controversial by secular privacy advocates and certain Christian groups, okay, that saw apocalyptic implications for mass microchip implantation in humans. The envisioned apocalypse was the fear of biometric data being uploaded to a clandestine surveillance database on a global scale. Now, it's ironic, isn't it, that this concern predated any indication that the cloud would become a reality just 15 years later. Makes you think about the 1 billion Indians whose biometric information is now safely stored in a government data center and what's going to happen. Another fascinating but still cautious story about the relationship of personal tech to the cloud is the emergence of wearable tech devices. Okay? Pretty much everyone on the planet is aware of Apple Watch, right? Google Glass, Fitbit, other devices that do everything from tracking your digital vital signs to receiving texts and emails to recording video of what you're looking at as you walk down the street. Wearable smart garments that record detailed biometric and physiological data in real time are now being successfully marketed by athletic clothing manufacturers, Nike, Reebok. And now, MIT and Microsoft have developed a prototype smart tattoo technology called DuoSkin. This revolutionary digital jewelry, pretty much digital jewelry, is made up of thin layers of highly conductive gold leaf imprinted with a circuit and an NFC chip for connectivity. There's a layer of thermochromic material for aesthetic body temperature displays, and the combined device is applied to the skin surface using conventional temporary tattoo paper. DuoSkin is designed to act as a simple touch-sensitive interface for smartphones, tablets, TV, and other connected devices. Fascinating part of this story is that MIT and Microsoft have essentially solved a troublesome marketing problem for wearable tech, okay? And that problem has been that it's been considered pretty cool, but it's also been considered kind of ugly, right? So not a lot of people will wear it because it doesn't really fit with their clothing or their ensemble the way they want to look. They've solved that problem. They've been able to elevate it to the level of personal adornment. And now wearable tech can appeal to our vanity as well as our geekiness. The cautious part of the story is that virtually all wearable tech, with all of its personal monitoring capability, is irrevocably connected to the cloud. Now, because of limited time, okay, just want to very briefly touch on the two latest frontiers of personal tech that point to our future residency inside the cloud. First one is Nano Technology. Now, you've all heard this term before, so have I, but its meaning and possibilities are immensely impressive. Nanotechnology is the science of manipulating and creating new objects from particles that are less than 100 nanometers in size. We call that a nanoparticle, right? The resulting new objects are sometimes not much larger than a small group of atoms. It's amazing. Just to refresh your memory, a nanometer, okay, is 1/1000th of a meter. And to help get your bearings, here's a little extra taste of nanoscale. Okay, a hydrogen atom is 0.1 nanometers. A DNA strand is 2.5 nanometers. A red blood cell is huge. It's 7,500 nanometers. The smallest neural cell is 4 nanometers. So it gives you an idea of what a nanometer is. The smallest possible silicon-based microchip is approaching the 14 nanometer mark. That's pretty small, okay? And it's pretty much the limit now for conventional silicon-based semiconductors. They really can't go any smaller than that, because if they go any smaller, they catch on fire. There just is not enough room for electrons to pass through it. Nanochips made from carbon-based material called graphene have achieved miniaturization to 7 nanometers. And there is some indication that a 5 nanometer microchip is on the horizon. That's just slightly larger, just 1 nanometer larger than the smallest neural cell. Nanoprocessors this small can be injected into the human body to monitor physiological and neurological functions at any anatomical site, including a virus or inside the brain. Okay? A virus, by the way, the smallest virus is 20 nanometers. The biggest virus is 400 nanometers wide. This was unbelievable. Recently read an article that described an enzyme-activated biofuel nanocell that would provide renewable power to an implanted nanoprocessor in the body. Think of it, okay? A machine about the same size as a neural cell, powered by renewable energy, that'll be capable of monitoring, recording, and uploading our most minute physiological and neurological data. Pretty much all of the detail that makes us who we are, all uploaded to the cloud. Anyone a little disturbed yet? Now, has anyone heard of the term the Internet of Things? Okay. It's a term that's being used to describe the ultimate interconnectivity of everyday objects in our lives, okay? To maximize happiness, productivity, efficiency. Smart vehicles, smart buildings, smart household appliances, smart furniture, smart clothing, smart food, smart cities, all connected through the internet. Machine to man to machine connectivity on a global scale. This is the ultimate squaring of the circle for big data. The IoT is the new holy grail of the tech world because it literally networks anything or anyone that can be embedded with digital capability. Every manufactured item, every service, every form of communication, every human body could be a participant, or more accurately, a component of the Internet of Things. This is all happening actually right now in real time. We're being persuaded that we will be the beneficiaries of this grand technological vision. But just as I said at the beginning of this presentation, we should stop to consider the question of whether or not it is the persuaders who are the real beneficiaries. The Internet of Things promises to open all doors of data connectivity to us. But are we supposed to overlook the fact that all the doors will just be separate entrances to the same big house? The cloud. Okay, take a breath, because there really is a point to all of this talk of the cloud. Actually, there is a question for all this talk of the cloud, but I'm not going to ask it right now. I'm hoping that you'll want to ask it on your own after I share this last bit with you. And I hope you'll keep asking it with every step on the walkway leading up to your personal door to the big house. In order to stimulate your private question, I'm going to share 3 brief story synopses, which you can choose to reflect upon singularly, if you like, or if you're so inclined, you could allow an intellectual and even spiritual triangulation of the stories to take place. Either way, doesn't matter, your private question will likely arise, although it may be different for everybody in the room. The famous British author, Aldous Huxley, wrote the novel Brave New World in 1931. Pretty sure everyone's read it at one point in their life. It's been required student reading pretty much from the year it was written, due to its bold imagining of an unthinkable future. The novel is set in the year 2540. That's 500 years from now. Now, virtually all of the human race resides in a single world state, a benevolent dictatorship overseen by an elite group of world controllers. The world state is a very stable and strictly conditioned global society subject to these dominant principles. Hope you can read this. Principle one is the abolition of natural reproductive development. All reproduction is manipulated through prenatal interventions. Prenatal, in the womb, both biological and neurological. Okay, this results in a rigid caste system. There's 5 classes of intellectual elites and lesser thinkers to serve them. That's the result of the biological or the reproductive engineering. Education at all levels is achieved through a subconscious sleep learning kind of methodology. Critical thinking is discouraged. Serious literature, science, and any experimentation is banned as subversive. The only cultural activity is a kind of tactile movie experience based on pure sensation. It's a kind of virtual reality. Individualism has been absorbed into a collective existence based on rampant materialism, drugs, and hedonism. Now, there is a small group of independent thinkers who live outside the control of the world state. They have natural experiential memories of history, literature, philosophy, science, and religion. They're called savages. Remember that. In 1949, George Orwell, another renowned British author, wrote the novel 1984. This is another book that most of us have read, right? This has been yet another required student read for decades with its own evolved, unique vision of an unthinkable future. This story takes place in Oceania, one of 3 colossal superstates that make up the future world order. Now, Oceania is governed somewhat differently than Huxley's world state. There's a single all-powerful leader, Big Brother. There are 3 social castes versus 5 in Brave New World. The inner party is 2%, that's the 2%. Okay? The outer party, which is 13%, and the proles, the masses, the 85%. The entire state is dominated by pervasive universal surveillance and broadcasting with televisions, cameras, speakers, and microphones in every corner of society. There is no place to hide from the eyes or the message of Big Brother. This universal surveillance regime employs powerful thought police to detect and eradicate dissidents and resistors. Winston Smith, who's the main character, is a middle-caste employee of the Ministry of Truth. It's kind of a funny title. Ironically, because his work entails rewriting historical records and altering historical photographs to conform to the state's propaganda plan for the prole class. Now, in 1984, there is an underground resistance movement of thought criminals called the Brotherhood. The resistance is dedicated to awakening a hunger for the truth amongst the prole class. Now, Winston briefly flirts with the Brotherhood, but he's captured by the thought police and is psychologically tortured in a special room which contains, get this, I thought this was really interesting. It's a room that contains each prisoner's worst nightmare. That's really an interesting image. I'm not even sure how they'd achieve that. Actually, I do know, right? Ultimately, Winston can't resist and he surrenders to Big Brother. Now, in 165 BC and 70 AD, 2 famous books of the Bible were written by futurists with yet another evolved perspective. They are the books of Daniel and the book of Revelation. Now, though their writing was separated by over 200 years, taken together, they have been required reading for both religious and secular futurists for centuries. More recently, these ancient prophetic writings are being re-examined because of their unique resonance with the new tech revolution. This new resonance has never been so unique or so provocative as it has been since the emergence of the cloud. Okay, so why wouldn't we wish to consider these visions along with the visions of Brave New World in 1984? Now, in the book of Daniel, the future world is ruled by 10 kingdoms. Now, theologians and futurists have speculated that these 10 kingdoms could be memes for the United Nations or, more recently, the European Union. An early incarnation of the EU actually featured 10 countries. The book of Revelation speaks of the Antichrist, or the beast, who wages war with these 10 kingdoms, eventually dominates them, and forges them into one single world government. This government is said to rule over every individual, every tribe, every language, every nation. The beast then moves to identify and persecute dissidents who refuse to follow him. The beast's primary instrument of controlling all life is through the medium of commerce. All subjects of the government are given a unique identification mark. This is what they call the mark of the beast. Okay, you've heard that term. This is how it's expressed in Revelation. The beast also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Now this calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. It's like a horror movie. Social survival is dependent on this mysterious ID imprinted on the right hand of the forehead. Imprinted on the right hand of the forehead of billions of people. But think about it. This mass imprinting is an impossible ancient task, okay, with a very possible modern solution. All people are forced to receive the mark of the beast, even though everyone is subject to the ID tyranny. There's other passages in Revelation that speak of persecuted dissidents among the marked. They're called believers. So in Brave New World, we have savages. In 1984, we have thought criminals, right? In Revelation, we have believers. Now, even though I close with this ancient Bible prophecy, you'll remember that I suggested you might find yourself triangulating these futuristic visions of Huxley, Orwell, and the Apostle John. By doing this, it's possible that some of you might conclude that these are all the same story. Okay? Written in chronological order, with one story merely inspiring the next. I've heard people say that, and I think that's valid. There may be others of you who see that there are enough differences in these different visions of the future that one is really no more plausible than the other. And therefore, none are completely plausible at all. There are even some that, as pragmatists, right, or realists, you would never ever base your worldview or personal agenda on works of science fiction, or even worse, religious fiction. So for you to suggest any triangulation of these three stories at all would be a kind of artificial connect the dots kind of conspiracy to demonize technology and suspend reason. Because we are a community of reason, after all. Okay, all of these points of view are valid. But here's the thing, okay? Because of the cloud, what was once considered fiction, whether scientific or religious, will very soon become completely possible, completely non-fictional. So let me suggest another triangulation possibility. It occurs when the alleged fiction of Brave New World, 1984, and Revelation, when that's intertwined with the now assured non-fiction of the cloud. Consider the possibility that these narratives are not the same story, but that they are one story. It's the cloud that can make every fictional claim, whether it was written in the year 70, 1931, 1949, or any other year for that matter, can make that fictional claim a non-fictional reality. There is nothing in these visions of the future, no matter how unthinkable at the time they were written, that won't be possible to achieve because of the cloud. Personal devices, biometrics, implanted microchips, wearable technology, nano technology, and ultimately the Internet of Things will enable our entire lives to be uploaded, stored, manipulated, and controlled because of the cloud. So triangulating what might be seen as science or religious fiction into one story not only articulates the what and the how of the cloud, but perhaps most importantly, the possible why of the cloud. All articulated before the cloud even existed. Pragmatists, realists, theists, atheists, even agnostics are all put on notice because of the cloud. One final thing. Earlier I had said that all this talk of the cloud might inspire a private question for you, okay? Now it could be a completely different private question for each person in the room. I also said that I wasn't going to ask my private question tonight, but I changed my mind. Because as I researched the disturbing, seductive, godlike power of the cloud and reviewed these incredible and terrible literary visions of the future, I was inspired, oddly enough, by the decidedly low-tech and completely human power to choose who we are. To choose to surrender or resist, to choose captivity or freedom. In the brave new world, world state or savage, choose. In 1984, prole or thought criminal, choose. In Revelation, subject of the beast or believer, choose. Therein lay my private question, and this is it. Who am I?
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in joining the question community, we meet every third Sunday evening at Redbush Tea and Coffee Company in the Kensington neighborhood of Calgary starting at 7. You can participate in the online discussion on our Facebook page, which is The Question, or on Twitter at TQCom. That's at TQCOMM. Our website is www.thequestion.ca. Thanks again for listening, and remember that our answers are only possible because of our questions.